Me cheating without knowing. I want to first say that I have been holding this in for about 15 years. I want to say that I don't believe in cheating. I work construction and was staying in a motel room until I could find an apartment. It was a 3-year project and the company rented a shop for me to work out of, and the work we do, it was a great thing for me. I showed up to the project about 2 weeks after the other crews because I do maintenance, and I had to finish up on another job. Well, when I got to the motel they only had a suite left, so I took it. I showed up about 12 that night and the woman behind the counter was impressed that the company was paying for the suite for me and had heard from some of my co-workers that I would be coming there days in advance. I have a good relationship with them all because I fix and weld their mistakes, so nobody has to fill out reports. And I have a good time with my free time. Long story short, she started having venting conversations with me whenever she could and started calling my room whenever she had problems with guests at night. Well, she was wearing a wedding ring, so I just kept to listening to her problems and small talk. Well, I was working 7 days a week and the crew that was staying at the hotel I was were going home for a 4-day weekend and were going to move to another motel that was closer to where they are working. We do transmission power lines, so they move as the lines progress. So I took the weekend off to do laundry and relax. So I get up at 5 Saturday morning like normal, so I'm going to do laundry. So I walk down to the laundry room and pass her doing the hotel laundry. After some small talk I asked her if she wanted to make some money and do my clothes. She said yes, but didn't want any money, just wanted to have a couple beers at 7 AM and to just talk. She knew that a bunch of my coworkers left me all the beers that they had in their rooms, so I definitely had beer. Well, she came down and about 4 beers in she told me that if I asked her out she would. I told her I don't mess with married women, and she said that she is going through a divorce and she works nights and her husband works days and they live their own lives, but they are together for the kids right now. Then she tells me that she has told her husband about me and he is good with it. Then she tells me that he is taking the kids to his parents' house for the weekend and she could stay. Well, I told her that it sounds good, but I don't want to get between her marriage problems, so she said I have to call him and tell him I'm going to just stay here tonight so he can just leave now. And she does call him, so I can hear the conversation. I was shocked when she said she had a couple beers and was going to stay in my room tonight. I heard that, and he didn't have a problem with it. I told her I was going to smoke a cigarette when she got the kids on the phone to tell them she loves them and see them Sunday or Monday morning. This was on speakerphone, so I just had to go smoke to get my head straight. If I would not have heard it, I would never believe it. So it was a little more talking about how she hadn't had time in over 1.5 years, and I believed her. She stayed till Monday afternoon and I of course took Monday off. We really did hit it off well. She would come to my room in the middle of the night and stay the weekend a couple more times before I got my apartment. The first week I was in my apartment she would come over before work, but that weekend she called me and said that her piece of junk van had finally died and asked if she could use my car to drive for a while. Well, that Saturday evening her husband dropped her off at my place and wanted to talk to me. I went outside and he shook my hand and told me thanks for taking care of her and letting her use my car. She told him that she would be home Monday. I was still in amazement but thought I was living large with a beautiful woman, and no problems from her soon-to-be ex-husband. This went on for a couple years. I got to meet the kids and really got attached to them. So time comes that she has to move because their house was foreclosed on. I rented a house and moved the kids in with her and I. She started talking about marriage and I said I would, but their divorce had to be finalized first. So I paid for a lawyer to speed it up and then we got married. On my wedding night I was told by her sister that I just met that her family didn't really approve of me cheating with her, but now that we are married they would try and forgive me. After some time her ex told me that he was told I was married already and was just a friend of his wife and didn't know that we were actually dating. We made it for 9 years and I had to divorce her when I found out she was cheating on me when I was working out of town. Thanks for letting me get this out. Redditor's reactions, story 2 after. Redditor 1, oof. So her first husband just thought she was platonically staying weekends with her male married friend. She clearly didn't let marriage get in the way of her single lifestyle. Sorry this happened to you. Op answer, not really, they were having trouble and were on different schedules, but he thought she was messing around with someone else that he knew. I still don't know why he didn't suspect me other than she told him I was just a good guy and my supposed wife knew that I was helping her. Redditor 2, it's funny how the way they leave you is the same way you met them. This isn't your fault, Op. You were lied to? If you had known different, things wouldn't have gone down this road, you know. This was her mo though. Standard operating procedure. Freedom to venture out without having to put yourself out there because you have a safety net of a spouse. Cheaters are emotional cowards who are willing to betray the ones that love them. So lying through their teeth is not only in their wheelhouse but a valuable tool in their arsenal of infidelity. Op answer, yes sir, I don't have any respect for cheating because they don't have any respect for the people that they hurt. Redditor 3, it's a mantra, once a cheater, always a cheater. Don't know how you didn't find out until after you were married, but yeah, should have annulled that it right then. Op answer, well, I thought I had to see that the kids were going to have a chance in life. But that's why I had to get a divorce before the 10-year mark. I knew that if I stayed past that I would have to pay her maintenance. Truth be told, I found out that her family has a history of mental health issues. Story 2, ex marries her AP days after divorce. Never thought my 35M life would become a train wreck after all these years of blissful married life. We have been together for 8 years, 6 years married. She 32F was closer to my parents than I am. Our marriage was perfect, and the time was great. Granted that there were some lean periods now and then, but we always managed to find our way back to each other with renewed effort and steadfastness. Both of us were in high-paying jobs and there were no problems financially. The only recurring argument that we used to have was in regards to having kids. I always wanted to start a family with her. Coming from a big family myself, I couldn't wait to start my own. She however maintained that she wasn't comfortable taking on a parenting role so soon in her life. Of course, I respected her opinion. She had certain aspirations in her professional front, and she needed time and space to establish herself, something she would lack if she got pregnant so soon. 3 years back, she got a career-changing promotion, and I was extremely happy for her. She had sacrificed a lot for her career and therefore it was all the more special when her efforts were rewarded. This however took a toll on our relationship. Her new role came with more responsibilities. I found her constantly exhausted and distant. She often stayed back late and even used to take official trips on weekends. Our intimacy hit an all-time low. We only had time when I initiated it, and that too very rarely, as she mostly excused herself with some reason or the other. This made me frustrated, but I stopped making any advances from my end after a point. In hindsight, I realized that she never stopped caring for herself even when the time was zero, be it revamping her wardrobe, hitting the gym often, and dressing up regularly. I respected her too much to think that she would do something as low as sleeping outside the marriage. It never occurred to me even once. When I found it, it was completely by accident. My phone was low on charge and I picked hers to make a call. Her phone was nearby though I didn't know her pattern. My wife was asleep and I didn't want to wake her up. To this date, I don't know what spurred me to do it, but I took her phone by the sides and held it tilted against the light. Dimly I could make up the swipe pattern of her fingers, which I replicated. I was surprised that it actually worked. Ignoring the guilty feeling, I opened up her WhatsApp messenger. There was nothing on it and I felt a pang of shame for a moment. I closed it and then opened up her Facebook Messenger. My whole life came tumbling down. I found it all their 13 months of endearing texts, sweet nothings, shared reminiscences, and promises to meet up for S-time. She had an intense emotional and S-timual affair going on with her boss ever since she had been promoted. They had done it everywhere, on his car, on his house, on office trips, and even in his private cabin at the office. I literally went numb with pain. I wish I had confronted her then and there, but somehow my mind stopped working. I just sat there on the couch like a zombie, and I still remember her waking up and getting ready for the office with that coy look on her face, humming and whistling like a teenager going on a date. I just sat there like a frozen doll. The whole week went in a haze as I still couldn't work up the courage to confront her. And yet with each passing day I felt something die in me little by little. My chat with my best friend helped me a little and I finally broke the news and confronted her. I had imagined that she would break down, apologize to me, and offer to work on our marriage. I had entertained the possibility of us taking MC. Yet, none of that happened. She did break down briefly with tears and apologized for the hurt that they had caused me. Only after she said they did I realize the enormity of the situation. They were truly sorry for the hurt that they had caused. It was never their intention to hurt anyone and that they had wanted to open up about the same for a long time, but she thought that I wasn't ready for it. I begged and cried like a child to make her stay, but she was all set. In my pettiness and desperation, I even threatened to complain about them at her work. It was probably the straw that broke the camel's back. After that, there was simply no hope for reconciliation and she broke all contacts with me and only communicated via her lawyer. The divorce only happened 6 months later, after which she promptly moved in with him. I didn't contest her and the settlement was fair for both of us as she too was gainfully employed. They are married now, and the other day I was checking out her FB, which I admit I do regularly. They had posted a happy pic captioning that she is now pregnant, which was strange as she never wanted to start a family with me when I had been married with her for years. I just don't understand anymore. I had grown more and more miserable day by day. I tried dating, but it just doesn't work for me anymore. I had never been as happy as I was during the first few years of our marriage when we were simply infatuated with each other. I wish I could go back in time and change things, even though I don't know what I could do differently. Updates. I have uninstalled all my social accounts except the professional network. The temptation to peep in was just too much, and I agree that it is preventing me from moving on. As far as going North Carolina, she has already blocked my contact in all the messengers. I don't plan on re-establishing contact either. Regarding reporting to the HR, I am afraid that the ship has long sailed. They are already registered as married in the employee portal and she has been moved to a different wing. More importantly, thanks a lot for the support. The resources you have shared via comments and chat have been of great help. Redditor's reactions, story 3 after. Redditor 1, man, I felt terrible reading your post. I understand your emotions, bro. but you need to move on. Time will help you to heal, and don't check her FB from now on, as it's only going to bring back all the emotions. Believe in yourself, brother, and get back to the dating world. You certainly will find someone who will treat you right. Just go North Carolina with her and let the time to do its job. You'll certainly heal. Just don't give up. I'm with you, man. Ready to follow up? I agree with this. The FB checking is something I did a lot after D-Day. Back then I just wanted to know what she was up to. Not knowing was driving me insane, but opening that up just created more suffering. It took me several attempts at forcing myself not to check in on her, but I stuck to it till eventually I no longer cared and my nerves were better off for it. Redditor 2, your story reads like so many stories here. Your story is our story. I'm so sorry you're in this place. I wish I could go back in time and change things, even though I don't know what I could do differently. Cheaters follow a pattern. You have to understand that it's nothing you did or didn't do. It's not your fault. These people have a relentless void within themselves, and it consumes good people. Cheaters don't care who they hurt and are only focused on getting what they want in the moment. They are never satisfied and nothing is good enough. They will always chase better even when they have the best. This is a classic pattern for narcissists. The abrupt devastation that they leave behind in close relationships after they drop their mask, while seamlessly sliding into a new mask and skipping off into a new life, is a telltale sign that you tangled with a narcissist. Essentially, you were married and in love with someone who never existed. You were a character in their play and now your scene is over. Please be kind to yourself. Trying to understand a person who's so damaged inside that their basic decency, humanity, and ability to make authentic connections are missing is a wasted effort. Focus on yourself and your healing. Infidelity is devastating and knocks us to our knees. We're stuck clearing the wreckage that the cheater leaves behind, and that really sucks. It's hard to believe that the person we loved could do this, but in reality, they're not the person we loved. That person is an illusion, and we have to grieve that ghost. Stop looking at her social media. That only prolongs your grief. Give yourself time to heal and grieve, rather than dating, because it sounds like you're not ready yet. And that's okay. You'll be okay. It just takes time and you have to push through it. Redditor 3, report them to HR. Story 3, 33M My story. First off, I would just like to thank everyone here. Your experiences have made me feel not so alone. Also, I apologize for any formatting issues as I am on mobile and am feeling kinda down tonight. On to the story. As to where to start, I suppose I should give a little bit of background. In 2010 I was in the army, and deployed to the Middle East for 12 months. I came home for 2 weeks for my mid-deployment RR, and as so many soldiers before me, fell in love with a girl that I'd known my whole life. We spent every minute of those 2 weeks wrapped in each other's arms, and I knew that she was it for me. We spoke every day the remainder of my deployment. I talked her into driving my car halfway across the country. It was at my mother's while I was deployed, under the guise that she'd stay a while and we would fly back to our hometown together, and I would go back and we would carry on as a LDR. Instead I proposed and she said yes, so we got an apartment, moved in together and got married a few weeks later. Our life was perfect for about 3 months, until her stepmother, who she hated, was in a car accident and she went home to see her. My so decided that she was so homesick that she was going to stay back home, and although I didn't agree, I did support her in this decision. After several weeks our relationship quickly deteriorated to a point where we agreed to separate and give each other time. Now obviously in hindsight this should have been the end of our relationship. I had about 18 months left on my contract and she was 1,000 miles away, but being the love-struck grunt that I was, I held on to hope and made my vows into a personal atonement for failure. I drank heavily daily for most of my remaining time in the service. So fall of 2012 and I ETS out, pack my stuff and head home. As soon as I get home I hear all the rumors of her running around with such and how she's been kinda crazy. I file for divorce and call her up and ask to meet so she could sign papers, and surprise surprise we meet, and instead of signing papers we have time, and I'm right back in with reassurance that this time will be different. So if you've made it this far, congratulations, I applaud your perseverance and warn that we're far from done and the worst is yet to come. I worked very hard and supported her for the next couple years while she finished her BSA. I did everything I could think of to be a supportive, loving husband. As time wore on I no longer fought her on anything and continually caved to her wishes, letting her go out with friends and party while I slowly contracted until all I did was work and go home. No friends, very little contact with family and no hobbies. But I was mostly happy. I loved my wife more than anything and settled into my existence. The one thing we fought about was time. Now we had great time and she never left unsatisfied, but shortly into our reconciliation our time life became sporadic at best. First it was several times a week, then once a week, then once every couple weeks, then at its worst it was 6 times in a year. I was growing very unsatisfied and she blamed her birth control, so I resigned myself to an unfulfilled existence. Fast forward to 2015 and we had just paid off our first home and I had purchased a small repair shop and we decided to try and have a baby. She went off BC and our time life did vastly improve. The beginning of the next year she became pregnant and we welcomed our first daughter into the world that fall. She decides that she wants to stay home, which I support, and we start living a pretty peaceful life. Since she's home all day with the baby, I take about 90% of the responsibilities when I'm at home, feeding, changing, bathing, etc. This quickly turns into her needing to go out on the weekends and blow off steam while I'm at home with the baby. No big deal, I'm more than happy to let her, but these nights quickly turn into her not getting home until 4 am, bars close at 1 am, and she's always just saying she's cruising with her GFs. I don't like it, but I acquiesce. About 18 months after our first girl we are surprised when she gets pregnant again. Now she still wasn't on BC, but we used condoms most of the time, but not 100%, so although we were surprised it wasn't unwelcome. Fall of 2018 our second daughter is born and from the get-go my wife does not handle it as well as the first. She says postpartum depression and I'd what to think, but I get them home and do my best to take care of my growing family. My wife starts drinking within weeks of birth, but only on weekends, but still not getting home until 4 am. Her depression and anger soon become such an issue that we start going to marriage counseling, and every session is about how I'm no good, lazy and a PI addict. This goes on for a few months until she finally confronts me and accuses me of having an affair with her best friend. I was so caught off guard that I was speechless. I mean, I spent every minute of every day either working or with my girls. Eventually she started to become so irrational that I suggested that she get medical help and came very close to having her admitted to a psychiatric facility, but she went on her own, got evaluated, and I discovered that she was bipolar. She had been diagnosed as a teen, and eventually when she calmed down I asked her what was going on and she told me she had had an affair on and off. Again with this guy most of our marriage, but she ended it before she initially got pregnant, and her recent actions were because she had so much guilt and had to get it off her chest. Now I'm broken-eyed what to do or what to think, and just can't stand to have all of this around my daughters, so I tell her that for right now I'm going to stay at my dad's and just needed time to think. About a week later I came back home and did my best to work through this. The very next weekend she says that she needs some space and that she going to go see a friend and gets drunk, doesn't come home and won't tell me where she is. That was the last straw. I told her to stay where she was and I took my girls to my mother's and stayed there for 2 weeks and filed for divorce. It was sometime later that I had a nagging suspicion and did DNA tests on both my girls. Turns out my youngest isn't biologically mine, and that is what really crushed me, and not because of what my WS did to me but what she did to her, and I dread the day when she's old enough and mature enough that I have to tell her. Now that fact doesn't detract from my love for my daughter. Her mother's choices have no effect on our relationship. I changed her first diaper, fed her first bottle, heard her first words and love her as fiercely as my oldest. She is mine. So now I'm sitting here almost 2 years, since D-Day, still trying to finalize divorce. She's dragging it out. My business with all the time I took off to deal with crazy and compounded with COVID is all but done, and I'm having a terrible time moving on, but hopefully tomorrow will be a good day. Thanks for listening to my TED Talk. Although perhaps no one will read this, it felt good to get it all out, and if by chance you did get through it all, sorry. Redditors' reactions. Redditor 1, call me rude, but your wife has many bags of hypocrisy. I'm sorry for you for having all of this mess. Maybe in right you will find someone who loves you and respect. For now, focus on your kids. Redditor 2, wow, dude. That is tough to read. I'm sorry you learned the truth regarding your daughter. Be strong. Redditor 3, thanks for sharing your story with us. I hope you and your daughters are doing great. Redditor 4, no need to be sorry, man. It's truly a shame that you went through all this, as you definitely didn't deserve it. These things seem to happen to the best of us, unfortunately. You're doing the right thing though in getting out of it and pushing through with the divorce. All you can do is, when it's not so painful, reflect on the relationship and see what lessons you can take from it into any future one you may have. Continue to grow and work on yourself as you heal and come back a stronger, wiser man. You will get through this. There's no exact timetable, unfortunately, but you will, and you'll come back stronger. I wish you all the best in the future and hope things begin to right themselves for you soon. Redditor 5, I'm sorry this happened, but in your next relationship, please don't ignore all the red flags like you did in this one, or it will just end up the same way.